The novel I picked for my ISU task is Dry by Neil Shusterman. To summarize, at the start of the novel, the readers get introduced to the main character, Alyssa, a 16-year-old girl who gets stuck in the drought with her little brother and soon-to-be friends, Kelton, Jackie, and Henry. At first, the drought was called a tap-out, but what seemed to be a normal drought ended up being blown out of proportion, and Russian panic ensued, so people tried to leave, buy all the water, or even steal the water. By the second day, people started dying of dehydration, and Alyssa and her friends started surviving together. Also, on the second day, people would abandon their cars because there was too much traffic, and because people started breaking into their cars, and normally they just went back home and just stayed locked in their houses. By the third day, crimes peaked, people stole even more, and even killing them to just get their water. By the fourth day, the government/military set up evac centers and overflow centers to control the people from further harm or crime. Also on the fifth day, Alyssa and her friends were out at the tap out. Oh, I'm sorry, bug out, a home that has food, water, and the essentials to live, but found that it was empty and now have nowhere to go. Finally, on the sixth day, they were saved and water was sent to California. My thesis, as shown in the novel, these characters were able to survive because they had street smarts, efficient planning, and weapons, mostly guns, to defend themselves. My first point is having street smarts will help you survive. The kid winces as she presses the gun harder against his forehead, a lot more terrified of her than he was of me. This shows street smarts because Jackie, the character who had the gun pressed against the kid's forehead, uh, later on in the book, she says that she wasn't even going to shoot him. She was just using it to threaten because, threatening was enough to scare him away. My second quote is, book smarts are nice like Keeleys are nice. They'll only get you so far until you have to walk on your freaking feet. As fight or flight situations, it's street smarts that will get you out alive. And this just furthermore explains that how useful street smarts are, and book smarts aren't very useful compared to street smarts in any fight or dangerous situation. And it proves that here that street smarts are the key to getting you alive from bad situations. And the third quote, I'm sorry, but I can't give you water now. Charity says, your skin is still elastic, which means your dehydration isn't critical yet. Here, just it's street smarts because Charity is clearly pretty wise if she can tell how hydrated you are just by pinching your skin. Again, this is street smarts because you can use this kind of skill in the real world like it showed in the book, and now she knows that she can give other people water who will need it more than they do because they're not critical yet. Now my second point, efficient planning will be a big factor to help you survive. But had we known, maybe we would have made a real backup plan. Now we have nothing. Nothing but despair and that singular thought nagging, Henry may have killed us all. Uh, this is this is to explain the effectiveness of efficient planning, because if they had made a proper plan with a backup plan, or even with a backup plan to the backup plan, they would have been saved from being in despair. They just would have been better off if they had a better plan, to be fair. My second point is there's a path that runs down Aliso Creek Canyon that goes all the way to the beach, I tell Kelton. Although I've never taken it all the way down, so I don't know how smooth it is. Bad idea, Kelton says. It's all wilderness and we'll be isolated targets for anyone who might jump us for water. I want to tell him that he's being paranoid, but I know he might be right, and it pisses me off. The more we keep the civilization, the more likely people will be civilized, he says, then adds, at least for now. This shows efficient planning because Kelton, even though the list idea was pretty good, he thought it through, thought about what couldn't go wrong, what can happen, where the area is. Then he thought of an even better one, keeping civilization. And also right before this, Kelton and Alyssa were packing up their backpack with food, water, and so something for entertainment if they get bored along the way. And Alyssa packed a knife just in case. My third quote: by checking the distance on the map, I can tell it's just 10 miles west of us, much closer than going back to Charity. We'll have to go totally off road for a while. We can cross the ridge here, Kelton says, dragging his finger along the paper, and pick up East Fork Road here. That will win to the lake. Sounds like a plan, says Henry in the spot in the corner. Jackie kicks him, not hard enough to hurt him, but just enough to make it clear his input was not welcome anymore. Are we all game for this? Kelton says. So again, Kelton, with making a really good plan, planning all the calculations, the distance of it, like how far they're from Charity, who was someone who saved them, who has water, who can help them, but they thought of going to somewhere else would be better because it's closer and they can be self-reliant. Also, in the end, he says, "Are we all game for this?" Which is probably the best thing of the plan because he asks everyone if they accept this plan, but they end up accepting it. My third point is having weapons to defend yourself is a necessity. I don't want to pull out my gun, but the second that creep got too close to Alyssa, it's like my protective instincts kicked in, and now my Roger is pointed right at his head. Well, again, like the quote with Jackie, just having that gun is super important because it would scare mostly anyone who's not, like, I would say, mentally stable. But as you can see, it's just so useful. Just having it, he defended himself and Alyssa from the creep. My second quote is, but I can't. With all the training, with everything I've taught myself about self-defense and wielding weapons, something inside me blows a critical fuse. I can't bring myself to pull that trigger. Again, like the first quote, having a gun is useful, but you would need at least the will to pull the trigger, ending someone's life, which is a lot for most people. And but also you would need training with a gun to further your survival. The third quote, a gunshot goes off and suddenly his knees give out. He goes down. There's a blood on his face and there's blood on Kelton's face too. But Garrett isn't dead. I realize that the blood on Garrett's face dripping from his mouth is from the butt he gave the skinhead. But the inked butthole's blood is his own. He's on the ground with a bullet hole in his forehead just above his left eye. He shudders once, then goes limp. It's just an overall summary of how useful guns are. If they didn't have a gun there, who knows what would have happened? Nothing good, I would say. But because of that gun, he was able to save Jackie, Alyssa, and Kelton, and Garrett. Kelton saves all of them by shooting them. And because of that, they were able to continue on their journey. Now, for my literary response, it's a connection that was made from the novel based on real world events, like the drought that's happening in California. To add some more, right now in the real world, California is at a D2 severe drought, while one part is at a D3 extreme drought, which is still really bad. When in the novel, it was shown to be a D4 exponential drought. The novel was made to show how real droughts happened, even though the events and the characters are fiction, still depicts what would have happened in the drought. A quote is, she's watching the TV where the news anchor is blathering about the flow crisis, which the media been calling the drought ever since people got tired of hearing the word drought. This is a quote from the book explaining the drought going around in the media. That's the end. Thank you for listening.